From the highways of America, here's the podcast where we talk politics, a little entertainment, some culture, and this and that, from the road to your ears. This is TrendChat with your host, Brian Bledsoe.
And welcome to another episode of Trend Chat. I am your host, Brian Bledsoe. And if you want to connect with us, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok. It's all the same name at TrendChat 24/7. We're available here at TrendChat247.com, and as well as Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, most popular podcast outlets across the board. And just put in the name Trend Chat and it should come up. And we appreciate you listening, and thanks for coming on and listening to your host, Brian Bledsoe. So we're going to continue our candidate series with Joe Walz. He is running for the 22nd district for U.S. Congress in the 22nd district in Texas. So we'll talk with him. And as of right now, we have 2 or 3 more. And as we said in previous episodes, we want to make sure we get all the interviews out, especially before Super Tuesday. Because as of right now, all the candidates that we have are from Texas, but Super Tuesday, it's a list of states. That's why it's called Super Tuesday, because it's not just one state. So I know Alabama and Texas. I don't know off the top of my head, but there are a number of primaries on March the 3rd. So as of right now, we're on schedule to have every interview out before then. As of right now, we'll have the last one will be on the last week of February. So unless we schedule another one right on Tuesday, which kind of would defeat the purpose a little bit. I guess, we could have it that morning and people could listen to it in the morning, and maybe someone changes their mind by listening to the podcast. Hey, if I could change one person's mind on a candidate, not so much me changing their mind, but maybe they just hear the podcast and like, I guess I should give so-and-so, a shot, and maybe I might vote for them in primary instead of someone, or just vote in general. Cause one thing about these primaries is, a lot of people don't go out to the polls anyway. So maybe might motivate someone to actually go vote for someone by hearing an interview on here. So, that'll be something else to know by listening to an interview on this podcast. Motivated someone to go to the polls and vote, which would be, I would like to hear that. Actually, if someone felt that way, please send us a message on any of the social media. Matter of fact, this is another thing I don't mention really, is our email address. is trendchat247@gmail.com. So I don't think I've ever mentioned that, but that's our email address if you want to email us. So matter of fact, I think I'm going to be mentioning that again because I have something else I wanted to talk about, but I'll bring it up at the end, right before we sign off. So, speaking of Alabama saying about the primary on March 3rd, you know what? This is something I really don't do on the podcast, but I'm going to ask the audience and anyone who is listening. Matter of fact, I'm going to ask 2 things. This is the first thing, and the second will be later on. I want to ask the audience anyone who is listening, if, and like I said, I don't do this at all, but I want to really try this, and I'm going to use as many avenues as possible to try to get this particular interview. So, as I mentioned about the candidate series and everything that I'm doing, And as we're recording, we're in Montgomery, Alabama. So just on the road as usual, and coming from Houston this morning, and delivering here in Montgomery. And I would like to get Jessica Taylor as part of the candidate series. And if anyone's listening, if they have any connections, email us at TrendChat247@gmail.com and see if we can maybe get her on before the March 3rd primary. So I just want to put that out there. I mean, I don't know. We've sent messages ourselves, haven't really gotten any response. So I guess I'll just try this just because. Okay. But, again, I'm asking that favor for whoever listening. And as I said, we're going to go on with our candidate series with Joe Walz, and we'll play that interview, coming up in a few minutes. But I also wanted to mention this. Well, I guess it's around this week, I guess we can just say, is that it is the 3-year anniversary of TrendChat. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, okay. That was louder than I thought it was going to be. Okay. But yeah, this is the 3-year anniversary of TrendChat. It was around this time. I've actually forgotten. I know it's like the second week in February. I know that much. And we were in Denver, Colorado. I remember that much, at a Pilot truck stop downtown Denver. Because I remember, which is still true now, actually. I said the show was going to start at a particular time. Actually, that was the first episode. So I was thinking that, okay, I could put in, okay, every show is going to start at 8:00 whether on Tuesday or Thursday or whatever. That's what I was thinking it would work. And I found out on the first episode that me being on the road is almost made that impossible to say I can have it at a particular time. Even if I record it ahead of time, because of the nature of being on the road, I never know if I set a particular time, I never know where in the country I am and if I have reception to even upload the episode. So I can say, all right, TrendChat is going to be on at 9:00 every Thursday. And then I will be in some area that has no cell coverage to upload, no Wi-Fi, no nothing. Because as a truck driver, you tend to go to go to areas that don't have good service. And some of these places don't have Wi-Fi, and it happens all the time. And I found out on the first episode, this is going to be difficult to put a set time. Because I remember I was an hour late on the first episode from what I was, from the time I put in, because I remember I got behind in traffic, and the signal wasn't great, and because I was trying to do it live. So anyway, and the first episode was done with just the Spreaker app, which we're still on now. We're on Spreaker, but that was it though. That's all we had, because the mic we used was just the regular Bluetooth mics, pretty much, your Bluetooth headset that everybody used. So the only difference from that first episode to this episode is that we have a better mic, where we don't just have a little headset on, which you can hear if you go all the way back. The first episode, introduction to TrendChat and all that, you will hear the difference. Not saying that we're so much better 3 years later, but we're a little bit better. At least I can say that. So in saying that, I'm thinking, I know we've mentioned before about the future of TrendChat, and we're thinking that, given this, we're around the 3-year anniversary of it, and we were looking to at least get to January 2021. And so thought about it a little bit more, and given the fact that February is pretty much will be the anniversary, the 4-year anniversary, we just kind of decided, okay, well, if we're going to stop, because right now we don't know, but right now it's kind of 50-50. But if we are, it'll probably be February of 2021, just to kind of cap it off on the anniversary, the 4-year anniversary of TrendChat. So it's just a couple more weeks. So, but that's given if we are going to stop. If not, then we just keep on moving and we just do like we're doing right now. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, when I saw last week and just thought about, oh yeah, it's going to be 3 years. It's kind of, I can't really, it feels like, I know it sounds so cliche, but it feels like yesterday that I was doing this, and I don't feel like I've been doing this a lot. I mean, this is episode 165, and still, I mean, I don't feel like I've been talking that much. 165 episodes, that's a lot. And wow, time is flying. Let's put it that way. So anyway, with all that being said, with all the downloads we've had since then, and I just want to say again, like I mentioned in the beginning, just thank you for listening and supporting us. And on top of that, we'll say like, share, and subscribe, and to share it with others, and let's continue to grow TrendChat even more. So with that being said, with that, I just want to mention about 1776united.com, because in these 3 years, they have came along and have been supportive, and we just want to give them a shout out. And also, if you check out 1776united.com, put in the code TrendChat. Well, hold up. Matter of fact, it has changed. That's one thing that has changed in the past 3 years, is that the code for 1776, because there's a number of websites, whenever someone gets a hold of your promo code and it goes on some site and then it gets spammed or whatever. Anyway, so we all had to change it. But so with 1776united.com, it is just TrendChat. That's the code. It used to be something else, but now it's just TrendChat, like the name of the show, TrendChat, and you get 20% off on your purchase. So on 76united.com, you can check out all the mugs, nice, patriotic, stylish shirts and hats and whatnot. 9 times out of 10, you probably seen me, if you ever seen me anywhere. I'm normally wearing one or the other, either a shirt or a hat. I know, like today, I'm wearing "It's Okay to Love America" long sleeve shirt from 1776united.com. So check them out. Put in the code TrendChat and get 20% off on your purchase. Hello, this is Brian Bledsoe, host of TrendChat, also contributor at politichicks.com. Here to tell you about the new book called Politichicks, A Clarion Call to Political Activism, with over 300 pages from contributors like myself, talking about topics such as education, social issues, healthcare, the Second Amendment, and of course, activism. I encourage you all to check it out at politichicks.com, and is also available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Hey, I'm Amy Robbins.
And I'm Emily Valentine. And we are not
your average gun girls.
And you're listening to TrendChat with Brian Bledsoe.
So, I guess we'll talk a little bit about these Oscars. I know a lot of you probably didn't watch it. I was thinking after after the episode last week, and it came to my attention, even though I was already maybe thinking about the Oscars and maybe seeing news about that here and there, but it wasn't until after it was over I was thinking I didn't give any Oscar predictions or anything, which I normally do, just for a couple of categories, but I didn't give any, mainly because I didn't think anything about it. I forgot that the Oscars was coming up this past Sunday. So, but anyway, looking back at it, I would have been probably about half right on some of those. But yeah, I would have got the best picture wrong because I would have said 1917, but Parasite is the one that won best picture. I would have gotten best actor but then that's not really a stretch. I think most people saw Joaquin Phoenix winning best actor for Joker, and then he went up there and talked about milking cows and how wrong that is, and yeah. But I know some people were, I guess, even if they didn't watch it, kind of the one of the pieces of, I guess, somewhat controversy is when like Brad Pitt coming up there making his like taking a little jab at Republicans because John Bolton didn't testify during the impeachment trial and all that, and so which is not surprising coming from Hollywood. Honestly, the one thing that I found it wasn't surprising. This wasn't surprising either, but it was as disheartening to hear as when the Golden Globes were going on, to hear Michelle Williams talk about, how she was glad she had the choice to kill her baby so she can get this award. I mean, as sad and disheartening to hear that. But again, when I heard that, then it's not surprising coming from Hollywood, because there are I've said a good number of them, at least the ones that are vocal, are pro-abortion. So it's not surprising that they will have no problem to get up there and talk about, slaughtering children. Basically, that's what it is. No matter how they want to soften that, but that's what they're clapping for. And during the Oscars, we had the people behind, I guess, the best documentary go up there and quote the Communist Manifesto to cheers from, pretty much the same group of people that were cheering Michelle Williams at the Golden Globes. Same group of people, regardless. It's all the same people going to all these award shows. And hearing her talk about workers of the world unite and all that, quoting the Communist Manifesto and getting applauded for that. Also want to say, it's not surprising on two levels. It's not surprising because it was, just a group of Hollywood leftists and Democrats and all of them in a crowd. That's not surprising to hear them cheer the Communist Manifesto. I mean, look at the candidates that are running in the Democrat Party. Yeah, they'll be clapping along too. So if they heard that. So it's also not surprising because of who were the producers or the producing company behind that documentary. It was Barack and Michelle Obama. That's not surprising. That they would be sympathetic, because that, I'm not going to go all the way and say, because she quoted the Communist Manifesto, that means Barack and Michelle Obama are communists. No, not going to go that far. What I will say is that they're at least sympathetic enough to work with them. I would say that. That's at the very least, they're sympathetic towards communists in a way. Well, put it this way: at the very least, they're sympathetic to communist sympathizers, because she may not be a communist, but she's probably sympathetic too. So we're just, at the very least, it's that, which even that is concerning. It wasn't concerning enough back in 2008 and 2012. So, oh well. But out of everything that happened at the Oscars, that was the one thing that really was just, it's revealing. Unfortunately, it's not revealing enough for people to understand where these people are really talking about, whether we're talking about in the Democrat Party and their close ties, their sympathetic nature to communism. And I'm just saying that nicely, because you could very well go further than that and just say they're just straight up communists. But I'm just trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they're at least sympathetic toward it. And that right there is alone is enough to where I just can't run with the Democrat Party if they're going to at least, just to be sympathetic to an ideology that would, that is so anti-freedom, anti-religion, anti-Christianity in particular. And so just going from that, that would be alarming. And it would be alarming if you haven't noticed that already, because it's not like they've been sneaking around with it. There have been plenty of times where they've basically made this this connection. If you just took just a second and hear what they're really saying and how they want to implement their policies as well. But that was the one thing that just really stuck out. There's other things that I can care less. I'm not even going to get into a lot of it, but that right there is something that I think it was very telling. And I think it's just they're going to get even more open with it, because I mean, you had 2016 and as well as now, you got someone who has no problem calling themselves a socialist, as far as Bernie Sanders, and here he is. He's so I guess he won in Iowa now. After a week, it took them that long to figure out. So that I think he won now, and now he has won the New Hampshire primary. So here you go, and you got a socialist, and a socialist is basically a communist on a secondary level. Like, it's not far to go from socialist to communist. Let's put it that way. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't really make that connection. And it's not just him, because it's not like it would be if any other candidate, because if they're not just outright calling themselves socialists, they're pretty much right there with them, close enough, or they're just a couple of steps away from it. So none of them are not that far away from Bernie. But anyway, we're gonna get to our interview with Joe Walz, as I mentioned, and matter of fact, we're gonna get to it right now. So, without any further ado, let's get to our interview with Joe.
This is TrendChat.
Hello, this is TrendChat, and we are very pleased to have Joe Walz with us. He is running for the 22nd congressional district in Texas, and we wanted to bring him on and talk about his campaign and other things. So, hey, Joe, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
So, well, first question for people that that don't know, because there's this is not trying to brag, but it is listened across the globe in some places. I mean, even Germany, some places. I don't know, but for those people that don't know what a 22nd district of Texas is, let them know what that is.
Yeah, the 22nd District of Texas is it's kind of a historic district. It's had a lot of strong conservatives represent that district in the past. It's basically southwest of Houston, the suburbs of Houston. It includes a lot of Fort Bend County, a big portion of Brazoria County, and then a few portions of Harris County. So, very diverse district. It's the most diverse district in all the United States. We've got over 100 languages represented, and every color, creed, and motto you can think of.
Okay. And so, I guess tell everyone a little bit about yourself. I saw on your website that you were a veteran. First off, thank you for the service. Also, I'm a veteran as well, so definitely
thank you
for your service. Yeah, and just going through there. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in my district. I have two sisters. We were raised here. We were less than wealthy, to put it mildly. We went without a lot as children, but we had parents that kind of taught us, they brought us up on Texas values, if you will, and just hard work and perseverance and never expecting a handout, and working for everything that you wanted. After 9/11, 14 months after 9/11, I enlisted. I was 17 years old and went off to the Army. I spent 11 years serving my country. Have 2 trips to Iraq, spent some time in Korea and Alaska, finished off right in the heart of America in Kansas. When I decided to come home, it was because I got custody of my oldest girls, and it was time to get out of the military and be home more. So we moved back. I went to Kansas State University and got all my helicopter pilot ratings. We moved back and moved in with my mother-in-law for a few months and started a business with really about $300. And grew that business. It's now a little over 6 years old, and it's mildly successful. I haven't gotten rich off it or anything, but we employ a few people, and we're still operating. My wife's a law enforcement officer. She's also in the Texas National Guard. She's an intel analyst. She's been doing that for, she's going on 11 years now also. And I fly air medical, so life flight for a company here in the district. That's kind of our thing. Is my wife is the daughter of immigrants, and I've just grown up a patriot, myself, and so we've always been kind of about service and sacrifice, and we've always been drawn towards careers that serve the country and serve our community, and we just embody that completely as a family, and we're really proud of that.
So, well, I guess quick aside, because I do want to ask. So, where in Korea? Because I was in Camp Humphreys in Korea.
That's where I was at. I spent from 2005 to 2006. I was at Humphreys.
Okay. Yep. I was in Humphreys for 2000. Actually, well, yeah, it was 2003. Now I think about it, it was 2003.
Oh, right before me, yeah.
Yeah, it was now I'm trying to think. March 2003 to July 2004.
Okay, yeah. You laid the groundwork for me.
What I want to ask you is, so what inspired you to run?
Well, the very first thing was my daughters, seeing kind of the way the world was turning and some of the things that were openly being discussed and accepted in some parts of the world and some parts of the United States. You start talking about late-term abortion and people claiming 64 different genders and that kind of thing. It left me kind of thinking, what is the world going to be like, when my oldest daughter here turns 18 in 5 years, she becomes an adult, or my 15-month-old daughter, 18 years from now is becoming an adult. What's America going to be like? And how do I prepare them for that? And it just struck me that I've never been about waiting to see and kind of playing second fiddle, and I decided I was going to make sure that the America I wanted for them was there when they got there, and so I filed to run for the election. I've been maybe antagonized a bit by people like Bernie Sanders and AOC and Rashid Tlaib, who will openly call for destructive economic policies and socialism and single-payer health care, which, being a veteran who could access single-payer care through the VA, I spend $700 a month on private insurance because I don't want anything to do with that system because it's just not quality care. And so I could have done a lot of things, and people kind of ask, why don't you run for local office or anything like that? Well, my life's been kind of focused on the federal level, and I think the biggest issues we have are on the federal level as far as, impeding on our rights, whether that's the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment. There's so many ways that the government at the federal level has kind of bullied their way into our lives in ways in which they're not constitutionally allowed. So, like I said, I filed, and that was actually, back then, the incumbent was still he was still running. He's since decided to retire, but I was going to primary him because I didn't see a lot of action. I didn't see the 22nd district represented the way that I expected it to be represented. So that's where the initial push came from. And of course, as you go out and you talk to voters, you learn there's other issues that weren't on the forefront of your mind. So you get to talk to them and hear their opinions and their issues, and most importantly, all the different ideas on how to solve them. Because I by no means, I have a lot of experience. I have a broad range of experience, but I don't know it all, and I don't claim to know it all. So getting to talk to them and hear their ideas for the district and for America are really important as well.
Oh, okay. And as far as, well, you say you were going to primary the incumbent, but is there a primary, how many people are in the primary and all that, and how that go? Because just let people know.
Yeah, no, for people that don't know, it's the most hotly contested district in America right now. We have 17 Republicans in the primary, and the Democrats have 3 in their primary. The kind of leading Democrat, the previous Democrat nominee from 2018, has already raised over $1 million. And we also have people in our race that are self-funded and have shown to personally spend $6 million in a primary before for an open seat. So that's the biggest hurdle financially, is there's a lot of money out there for this district, and we don't want the district to be bought and paid for. We want the district represented, with biblical principles and with Texas values, and with someone that's just like the average constituent of Texas 22.
Okay. Well, I just want to get into a little bit of the issues. And so I was seeing what issues on your website showing, like Second Amendment, federal spending, education, health care, and term limits. And so I guess I want to start off with the Second Amendment. Well, from what I read, it said, you're a supporter of the Second Amendment, and I guess what I want to ask you is, one thing for me, just thinking off the top of my head, especially in this past year or so, just this whole idea about red flag laws, and I just want to ask, what is your opinion on those?
Red flag laws have no place in America. They may be one of the most un-American, freedom-restricting proposals ever thought of. Because not only do they, infringe on the Second Amendment, they're also easily going to be infringing on even the First Amendment and Fourth Amendment. There's no way that somebody's presented to me anyways to enforce red flag laws or to even have them and still be just under the United States Constitution. As it applies really to the Second Amendment, though, the Second Amendment doesn't give you the right to own, keep and bear arms. it just affirms a right that God has already given every single person to defend themselves in any way, shape, or form. You know, David wasn't told he had to call somebody else to handle his problems. He was able to defend his people, defend himself the best way he could. You know, in ancient times, that was a rock. You know, it may have been a stick. In colonial times, it was muskets. But today, it's you know, it's everything. We have a government that has satellites and drones and everything under the sun. So to expect a nation, and what I love about the supporters of the Second Amendment, the patriots of America today, are that they recognize that we're a young country, and it wasn't but, you know, about 250 years ago that our people needed the Second Amendment because they were scared to death of a government having a military, because the military is what the British used, you know, to quarter themselves in people's homes and to tax the people without representation and those kinds of things. So I'm proud to be a part of a community that understands that no matter how far we've progressed as a society, those basic issues are there.
Yeah, I know, you know, just like you said, whether it's a rock or a stick or a musket, just, you know, technology changes, but our rights don't. And so regardless of whatever technology, even after, you know, in the future, I mean, that still doesn't give anyone a right to infringe on our rights to, you know, to defend ourselves. So I know the next issue was talking about, well, you mentioned earlier about wanting to affect change on the federal level, and one of the issues is federal spending. And so, you know, if you're in the House and wanting to rein in spending, that's definitely not going to make you a very popular member up there. And so I just want to ask, so what, I mean, when it comes to federal spending and trying to rein in some of this spending that is very rampant up in D.C., I mean, what you looking to do?
Well, the first thing you need to do is you have to elect people like me. And I don't mean just for Texas 22. I mean across the board. You know, it's great to have one or two guys in there, you know, being an advocate for this, but you need about 430 more, you know, to really affect change. So, you know, I'm glad that you have kind of an international and national listening, because people need to understand that that's the candidate they need to be looking at, is who will actually do that. Because Republicans for years have talked about fiscal conservatism until they're there. And that's a really popular, you know, hot topic item with the voter. But once you get to D.C., all of a sudden, you know, that's like, oh, no, let's not talk about that. So the first thing we need is a balanced budget amendment. We need it like life or death. Our country needs a balanced budget amendment, because the federal debt has basically doubled every 10 years. At that rate, by the time my daughter is in college, our country will be sitting on about $100 trillion in debt, and that's an unfathomable number. And that's the start of it. But then once you have the balanced budget amendment, you go, wow, well, how do you meet that budget? And it's with zero-based budgeting. We need to justify every expenditure up and down the budget, you know, whether it's Department of Education, Department of Defense, you know, Health and Human Services. Some of these entities shouldn't even exist, you know. So those are the two fastest ways to really balance the budget and start paying down that federal debt.
Hello to fans of TrendChat and Brian Bledsoe. The Founding Project, an education nonprofit dedicated to civics, invites you to visit our brand new website. Visit us at thefoundingproject.com. Be a part of the civics movement with The Founding Project. The Founding Project is a 501c3 education nonprofit. Please join us today.
And, you know, and what you just mentioned, because I know personally, I'm definitely a fan of decentralization of the federal government. And I guess going into your next issue is talking about education. And I think that's, for me personally, that's one of those departments that need to be decentralized. And so you mentioned on your website about Pell Grants as far as helping people that maybe, don't want to go to, traditional 4-year college and just look. I don't want to put words in my mouth, but I'm guessing it's something going towards like vocational training as well.
Yeah, and there's I've been presented with a few ideas on this, and there's some pros and cons to things like the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant, there's nowhere in the Constitution that says we should be giving anybody money for education. But if we're going to, and I'll tell you why. If everybody in the country, or the vast majority of people in the country, qualify for for a free, say, $6,000 a year to go towards secondary education, then the cost of education across the board goes up about $6,000. So you're not getting any more value for it. The school is getting more money and the government is spending more money, but all it did is go through you're just the middleman. It's going to you just to go to the school and you never see it. So it really contributes towards inflation more than anything. But if we're going to have something like that, then I really think that we need to be pushing people through their educational goals as fast as possible. If you're going to spend $6,000 a year on a student for 4 years, well, why don't we just spend it all up front, get them trained in a vocation in 12 to 18 months in jobs that we need people like right now. There's a huge shortage of aircraft mechanics, for example. Just enormous gaps that we can fill and fill them quickly, because having someone in school for 4 years for a degree that has almost no value in the public sector versus having them vocationally trained and employed 12 to 18 months after high school graduation, contributing towards the workforce, we're developing a tax base, and we're not wasting their time or money. Just the cost to live for 4 years in an apartment or dorm, or, feeding yourself and housing yourself and clothing yourself. Let's get that over with in a year and a half versus 4 or 5 years. It probably takes the average person 4.5, 5 years to get a bachelor's these days. So that would kind of be my direction of thinking as far as it applies to education. But I am completely open to abolishing the Department of Education altogether.
Yeah, and I think one step that as a society, or at least here in America, that I think we should try to get rid of this stigma of having of someone that doesn't go to a 4-year college, that doesn't, that takes up a vocation, because it makes people, for a long time, it made people feel like if you don't go to, go to college or university, if you don't have a degree, and, you just, basically lesser than, in a way, and kind of really has made people who want to go towards vocation or taking this sort of vocational training to make it seem like they're not as smart. And I think that's one thing we need to really get away from that as well. I
agree 100%. Something that could change people's minds when they're young, because and that's where we go back to local, more local control over education, decentralizing it from the federal government, because if you could affect the curriculum as a state school board and as a local independent school district, and stop pushing this college thing, and have some truck drivers and welders and aircraft mechanics come in and show people their pay stubs, I think a lot of young people would be extremely impressed. I know when I found out how much some of those men and women made, I went, holy man, I had no idea people were making that kind of money, with just a little bit of vocational training. So, and no debt, So it's an unbelievable path that we have to present to people.
Yeah, and I just think as a whole, it's just something that just need to kind of, I guess, just broaden people's options, because it seems like we're just pointing everyone to just one direction. Like, you have to do this, go this direction to be successful, and that's definitely not the case. So now, one of the other issue that you had on is about healthcare, and just by reading your description, I guess you're not a fan of Medicare for all.
No, I'm not. I'm not a fan of anything that removes the incentive to work, and I'm not for anything that indebts the country further than it's already indebted. It's so anti-freedom to say that we're going to have something like Medicare for all, because that means you're expecting to legislate people's salaries, basically. Doctors and healthcare professionals, and I work with these people every day, okay? I work with very skilled nurses who have been in their field for many, many, many years. And to tell these people that they're going to work for X number of dollars after they've spent their money, their family, and they have sacrificed for not only that bachelor's degree, but also medical school and then their residency. They've dedicated at that point over a third of their life to post-secondary education. And it's cost them a lot of money. And some of them, their motivation is the money that they're going to make when they get to the end. Because if you're going to make half that, you may lose half the people that are aspiring to be a doctor, So it's just on that level, it's just wrong, I think, because you're expecting somebody to work for free or a lot less than they do now, just because it feels good to you. And there's nothing in the Constitution, there's nothing in, that our founding fathers ever talked about that says that healthcare is a basic human right. And I'll tell you why. Healthcare involves people. That's forced labor in that case, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You cannot force a healthcare provider to provide healthcare and call it a basic human right. Self-treatment is a basic human right. Nobody should be prevented from trying trial drugs if that's their last hope, if a new procedure or drug or treatment, go for it, whatever it is, try it. Self-care is a human right, absolutely. Treat yourself, but healthcare in a professional setting, in a professional sense, is not a basic human right.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's so many out there that are wanting to say that it is a human right, and it's coming from the same people that kind of want to make everything a human right. So it's just a sense of entitlement that is unfortunately getting more and more accepted amongst the general public, but hopefully we'll be able to turn that around some way.
Yeah, hopefully.
So with all the issues that you have talked about, how long you want to try to accomplish it all if you're also for term limits?
Well, you can't tie those things together. I had somebody tell me the other day that term limits were a disaster, and I think in Michigan is where they have them. And he said, so our Speaker of the House only had, 6 years of experience or something like that. And my thought was, so what? Most freshmen, first term, second term, congressmen and women go in with a whole lot of fire and energy, and they want to accomplish these things, right? And they're open to anything that'll get those jobs done, whatever it is, the federal deficit, the budget, environmental stuff. You look at AOC, you look at Dan Crenshaw, you look at these people that came in and they had a lot of great ideas, and they got there and they were told, okay, now shut up, and we're going to tell you how it really works. Maybe you can accomplish that whenever you get to my level. And that's the wrong way of thinking. So you have to separate those things, because if you look at once term limits are implemented and the average time that people have been in the House is 4 to 6 years, and that's the maximum it'll ever be, well, now you have a lot of people who are motivated to get these things done. They're not thinking about 20 years from now. They're not thinking about if they become speaker 20 or 30 years from now. It's people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer that have been in there for 3-4 decades, Joe Biden, that have completely crippled this country but gotten rich off of it. You know what I mean? We've gone in debt, but they've gotten more and more wealthy. The Clintons are a prime example. You know, you go into politics, you go into government work as a quote-unquote public servant, and you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars just in my lifetime. You know, I remember Bill Clinton being elected when I was a very, very young man. And I look at him now, I go, I mean, all he was the governor and then the president, and then his wife was a senator. Like, the money just doesn't add up. So, yeah, I'm absolutely for term limits, because what I would do is work my tail off for those 6 years and accomplish everything I possibly could, and then hand it off to my successor. And I would be proud to do that. I'm not going to Congress to spend my life there. That's not my intention. My intention is to do everything I can as quick as I can for the district, and then let somebody else with some new ideas and some energy, because I'm going to wear myself out. Whether it's 2, 4, or 6 years, you're going to get every minute out of me. That's just the way I work.
All right. Well, if people want to know more about you, want to see these issues, and want to connect, and even want to donate, where would they go?
JoeWalzForCongress.com. Last name is WALZ. And you can always find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, wherever you want. The usual handle is at Joe Walz TX-22.
All right. Joe, thank you so much for your time, and we'll hope to have you on again soon.
I appreciate it. You drive safe out there, man.
Hey guys, this is John Miller with Blaze TV. You are listening to Trend Chat with Brian Bledsoe.
And thanks to Joe for joining us, and also just want to wish him a happy birthday as we are recording this. Just noticed that he just had a birthday, so we want to wish him happy birthday. So, and just, thanks to him again for joining us. And so also, pretty much, I'm almost certain you're listening to this at the earliest. It's going to be Valentine's Day. So for everyone, happy Valentine's Day. And if not, don't worry about it. It's just another day, just Friday. So, but yeah, so just want to, on top of, wishing Joe happy birthday on Thursday, it was, and but now also for the people for Valentine's Day, like I said, that's 3 years ago. That's when we started. It was on Valentine's week, I guess. It wasn't on the day, but on the week of Valentine's Day. So I appreciate everyone listening. Now, and also, so the second thing, so I didn't forget. There was a second thing I wanted to ask of the audience that is listening, and I wanted to, want to ask before we get off, is, so we here at TrendChat are able to see, I guess, like stats, the statistics of what, where people are listening. I mean, we just know like the countries and maybe in the cities. We don't know. We don't have addresses. but how, whether it's through Apple Podcasts or Spotify, stuff like that. Anyway, all that to say, as I mentioned in the interview with Joe, that this is a international broadcast, because, which is true. I said it, with a chuckle, because it is true. We see it in the stats. We see that different countries listening to TrendChat. I don't know how or why. I appreciate them all, whoever's listening. But we see different countries. We see India, and sometimes we see Japan, sometimes Germany, and whatever like that. Anyway, and I'm grateful that people from across the globe, whether it's just one person, it kind of feels that way, I guess. Maybe I don't know. Maybe just one guy or woman or whatever in India, is listening to TrendChat, and I appreciate it. And so anyway, it goes to this. I'm saying all of that to ask this. I mentioned about our email is trendchat247@gmail.com, or you can message us on all the social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok. It's all at TrendChat247. You can message us there as well. And I want to ask, especially for international listeners, and especially on top of that, in our, I guess, what we see from the stats, from all the different countries, one country we see in particular, or at least one region, is the United Kingdom. And I just want to put this out here because it's obvious someone is listening consistently to this podcast. You are consistently listening to this podcast, and I want to ask, whoever you are in UK in particular, I would love for you to just send us a message one way or another, whether Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at TrendChat247, or email TrendChat247@gmail.com. The reason I'm focusing particularly on UK, because although we see all these other countries, they go in and out. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. Sometimes we'll see a Germany, then we don't see it again for a couple of months. I don't know why but the one constant is UK. And actually it's like one area in the UK. It's close to London, actually, in the London area. And it's a constant every time. It's always that particular area. And I just want to know who there is listening. I'm so curious about that. But and not only that, but I'm also curious about anyone else that is listening in any other countries, as well as here in America, because it's like 90%, 95% US. So it's open to everyone. But I'm curious about the people who are listening overseas. 'Cause I just want to know why and kind of understand why. So anyway, that's enough rambling from me, because that was a long way to get to that. But I appreciate everyone listening. Again, TrendChat247.com. All, I keep saying all. It's most popular podcast outlets: Google, Google Play, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, blah blah blah. Thank you for listening. When we will continue these candidate interviews, and we have 2 or 3 more. So thanks again for listening, and until next time, we'll chat with you later.